Hi, Victoria. How are you today?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for meeting with me again today. We're almost done with our sessions. We only have one more week to work. How do you feel about that?
All right.
It's all right? Okay. You ready to be done?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay. So we've been working on a lot of strategies that you can use for fictional text and non-fictional text, and done some word work to help you with prefixes and suffixes, and some writing that's really helped you be more persuasive in your writing and help you find your voice. So I think we're making really good strides with that. I know you just finished Then There Were None.
Mhm.
How did your reading go using the Nook?
Good.
Okay, what were some things that you liked about using that technology?
I could choose my own font size.
Okay, and
So that was nice.
and did that help you read
Mhm.
better then? Okay, good. What about how did the note taking go on there with you?
Good.
Good. Okay. Were you able to? Do you feel like you were able to make better notes using the technology than you would if you would have had a typical textbook?
Yeah, probably. Because sometimes the post-its can fall out or something.
Okay, good, good. So do you think that might be a way you would try to read a book again?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I particularly like the ebooks. I think they go a little bit faster. So
Yeah.
it takes a little bit of time to get used to the highlighting and the notes.
Yeah. And with a book, you see how many pages there are, and with the Nook, you kind of just slide it.
Just keep reading, right?
Yeah.
Okay, especially if you make the font a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Just kind of go through it faster. Yeah, trick the mind. Okay, so today we're going to get back into your history book. You had told me that you have a history lesson coming up and you wanted to kind of be prepared for that the way we did in one of our other sessions. So we're going to work in world history. And the strategy that we're going to do today is going to help you identify the main idea in this first section. And as you know, there's usually more than one main idea, and especially when you're reading nonfiction text. So some of the text features in nonfiction are like your bold headlines. So you have sections of it you can see, and in this particular text you have blue, and then you have these red highlights. So this is kind of the main idea for this particular section, and then within that section you have these other places, right? So it also talks about down here about note-taking, reading skill, identifying main ideas. So I thought since that was kind of the purpose according to the textbook, I would give you maybe another strategy that you can use. So the strategy we're going to use is using Post-it notes. And I have 3 Post-it notes here, and they each have a star on them. And what you'll do is, as you're reading, if you find something that's really important or that you feel is important, then you're going to take your Post-it note and you'll put it onto the side of the text.
Okay.
Or you can set it on the text if you've finished reading that area. And the reason that this is important is because when you're reading that nonfiction, you want to make sure that you're kind of synthesizing that information as you go, that you're summarizing and understanding it as you read. And you can even see in my textbook, as I am highlighting, I am able to write on the sides of my book because this is my book and I own it. Since this is a school book and you obviously cannot write on the sides, having a stack of Post-it notes with you can be a really good tool that you can kind of write down those notes. And I was thinking the last time when we were in your history book and we had used the words, it probably would have been good if I had given you a stack of Post-its. We could have put those Post-its on the side and just helped you put those visual definitions down so that when you went back to it, you kind of had an idea of what those words were to help your reading. Okay? So that's the strategy we're going to use today. And then, like I said, when we finish up with this, then we'll go into your journal and work on your summary and responses. Okay? So I'm going to have you read. I like hearing you read aloud.
Okay.
So I'll have you read aloud to me, and then whenever you want to stop, you just place that Post-it wherever. And this is how you feel about the text, what you think is important, and then we'll kind of talk about that. Okay? All right, so go ahead and start.
Where do you want me to end up?
Let's go from the Harlem Renaissance. Let's just read A New Black Consciousness. So we'll stop right here where it says checkpoint. This looks like it might be a new section since it says the Jazz Age. So we'll just go from here to here. Okay? All right.
As a result of World War I and the Great Migration, millions of African Americans relocated from the rural South to the urban North. This mass migration continued through the 1920s and contributed to a flowering of music and literature. Jazz in the Harlem Renaissance made a lasting impact not only on African Americans but on the culture all Americans share. Like the
Okay, stop for just a second. So, can you tell me why you skipped these dark words here, these bold printed words?
I don't know. I guess I only.
Okay, so you're probably thinking that doesn't really. So one of the things, since this is a school textbook, you really want to get into here and read these things because this may give you focus for that next section, or it may help you summarize what it is that you just read. So the section focus, so that's what we talked about, this being the section. The second session focus question is, how did African Americans express a new sense of hope and pride? So that's kind of the question you want to have in your head as you're reading.
And traditions bred new ideas.
Okay, so let's stop there. So that was one of those sections that was bolded in red. I want you to kind of skim through again and see if there's a place that you might be able to place your Post-it for an important idea in there.
I thought that this was kind of important.
This very last paragraph here?
Yes. Some 200,000 blacks settled in Harlem.
Okay, so you would take your Post-it here. And you
then
would
about
put it
the
here.
ones of them.
Okay, and then just on the side of it, just jot some notes, maybe some keywords in there. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out sentence, but just something that would help you remember when you go back into the text what it is that you thought was important about that. Get a visual in your head. Group of people in the South, African Americans, oppression, no decent schools, no good paying jobs. They all migrate north. They get north, better jobs, but then like you said, they settled into Harlem. They joined with other cultures and they started saying, we're done. We want equal rights. We want better treatment. So that was kind of the beginning. Okay, so next red sentence there.
Okay. So Garvey calls for racial pride. The most prominent new African American leader to emerge in the 1920s was Marcus Garvey. Born in Jamaica, Garvey traveled widely before immigrating to Harlem in 1916. From his travels, Garvey drew one important conclusion: everywhere blacks were exploited. To combat the problem, he promoted the idea of universal black nationalism and organized a Back to Africa movement. Unlike Booker T. Washington or W.E.B. Du Bois, Garvey did not call for blacks and whites to work together to improve America. Instead, Garvey advocated the separations of the races. Garvey's message found willing converts in American sites. By the mid-1920s, his Universal Improvement Association boasted almost 2.5 million members and sympathizers.
Okay, let's stop there for just a second. So Garvey's message found willing converts in American cities. By the mid-1920s, his Universal Negro Improvement Association boasted almost 2.5 million members and sympathizers. So 2.5 million people, not just African Americans, not this, but also people that sympathized with their movement. This word is Negro. You skipped it. Do you know? Is there a reason you skipped it? Did you not know what it was?
It's just
Okay. Well, that's a word that you'll see in your history text. Negro is a word you'll see in your history text. And those are the words that were used to define that population. Now, in 2013, we're used words African American, and who knows what it'll be in 2045. You know, it just depends. So it's not the word that you're thinking that you hear. It's a word. So when you come to those, don't feel bad about saying it, but understand that that's definitely a different term than what we use today. Okay? All right, and that's what it was called. He named it. This guy Garvey, this is what he named it. So Universal Negro Improvement Association. Okay, so go down to this one then. Garvey's movement.
Okay. Garvey's movement fell apart in the second half of the decade. The federal government sent him to prison for mail fraud and then deported him to Jamaica. Without his powerful leadership, the Universal Negro Improvement Association lost its focus and appeal. Although Garvey's movement died, his ideas did not fade. The nationalist and separatist aspects of the Nation of Islam and the Black Power movement in the 1960s owed much to Garvey. So too did later appeals to black pride, self-resilience, and cultural ties to Africa. Harlem's major newspaper, the Amsterdam News, later wrote, "In a world where black is despised, he taught African Americans to admire and praise black things and black people."
Good. And so your checkpoint says, how did Marcus Garvey encourage African Americans? So that would be a way to help you summarize. Okay, so Anything here that you would want to note with your Post-it? Might be a couple things, because I would imagine that's a lot of new information.
Yeah.
And then remember that our key question over here was, how did African Americans express a new sense of hope and pride for this section?
Okay.
We might not be able to answer that quite yet, because remember, this is the question for the entire section, the Harlem Renaissance. We've just read one part of that, and that's the new Black consciousness. So is there anything else in here that you feel like you need to note? And if this is it, just two, then that's perfectly fine.
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, so then what we would do next is you would go ahead and continue to read, and you would continue with this strategy as you read through. And the idea is that when you come back and you look at it again in order to complete any coursework you have or assignments you have, you would have these notes to help you kind of go back in, as opposed to having to reread the entire thing. So it's just a form of note-taking. All right, so we are finished for today. Thank you so much for working with me. And when we meet again, we'll work on your word work, and then we'll start some assessments. Okay? All right, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.